a pre-colloquium submission presentation by our scholar, Miss Sameera. And I welcome on behalf of Research Supervisor Dr. Shija MS, and I am the co-supervisor. I welcome Dr. Sheelan Mishra, our external DC member. Ma'am is with us, with the scholar from last 4 years. So ma'am has seen the entire journey. So ma'am, today we welcome you and we are looking forward for your suggestions, observation, because this is the final step where she can do if there is any major corrections are required. After that, she will be go for the synopsis submission and further process provided she get approval from the panel today. And I welcome Dr. Shakti Chaturvedi from Reva University as a subject expert. Most welcome, ma'am. And we are looking for your suggestions to enhance her work so she can come out with more fruitful work, which will be really helpful for her. So, ma'am is subject expert, and I welcome Dr. Anita as an internal DC member, and Dr. Nivia from Dean Research, representing our research office, and all the scholars and colleagues. So now I will give it to Sameera for the presentation. Sameera, you need to finish in 30 to 35 minutes. I know it's so many slides, but you have to be emphasizing on the more outcome part. And after that, after Sameera's presentation, we will take questions from Dr. Shakti and then Dr. Sheelan. And then we will see how the outcome is. So is it okay, Sameera? Now you are ready?
Absolutely, Dr. Shubha.
Okay,
Thank you so much for
okay.
the warm welcome. And today is
All
a
the
very
best.
momentous day. Thank
Yeah,
you so
please.
much.
Okay.
So once again, it's good afternoon here. So Dr. Shakti, Dr. Sheelan, Dr. Anita, Dr. Nivya, and Dr. Shija, and of course Dr. Shubham. Really wonderful. Thank you for all the support. Today is a momentous day because this is exactly what I'm doing, and it's good to see that I can progress with my research work and taking it forward, and we can work together. So I'm going to share my slides. I do not know whether you can see it. Can you please confirm if you can see the slide?
Yes, it is visible and you are audible. You can start your presentation, Sameera.
Excellent. So my entire research is all about shaping future thought leaders for global leadership competencies. And although this is, a very common buzzword that people use these days, I would like to start by just letting you know why am I so passionate about it. Let's look at Sundar Pichai, for example, the CEO of Alphabet. And what is he known for? Innovative thinking, strategic vision. What about Satya Nadella, who's the CEO of Microsoft? He is known for transformational leadership. And let's look at Parag Agarwal, the CEO of Twitter, now X, known for technical expertise. Like that, we have Shantanu Narayan, the CEO of Adobe, who's looking at customer-centric approach. And Ajay Banga, who's the CEO of MasterCard, he's now the executive chairman, and he looks at a global perspective. And I will obviously talk about the former CEO of PepsiCo, Indra Nui, someone who I deeply admire, who talks about leadership transformation as well. And that was the basis of finding out, being an educationist and in the academia and industry, how can we bridge the gap and fast track global leadership competencies. So I would like to start because we have like 30 minutes. I want to stick to the time. I would like to start by giving a brief introduction from the research work done with research papers which look at rapid transformation, technological advancement. We look at traditional management skills and how that is moving forwards towards sustainable change. We look at emotional intelligence, cross cultural communication, and I've also looked at research papers which looked at a mixed method approach, where you look at case studies, surveys, And finally, what is the emphasis in reimagining leadership through innovative education strategies is what I'm focusing on as well in my research. Before I start, I would like to share that I have at least 3 to 4 approved papers on Springer and at least 20 to 25 international summits around the world, UGCK listed journals as well. One, awards in conference paper presentation, and these are some of them. I have put them in 2 slides, although we have much more. Before I start highlighting areas, I would like to talk about some of the operational definitions because some of these words can be, taken in different aspects. But what is thought leaders for me? These are individuals who are recognized for their innovative ideas. And I would like to put innovation on the forefront here because that is where the future is taking us to. So you have influence, you have who drive change in a particular industry or community. Global leadership competencies is all about the skills, the behavior, and the attributes. And I have looked at a citation and a reference from Black and Morrison for this because it could be a larger scope, which could be generalized, but I would love this to be contextualized in the area of the research. Global challenges are all about being complex and interconnected issues which transcend national borders. As my research is all about the international sphere, I wanted to be very, very careful when treading upon key areas of climate change, global health, and economic equality as well. Security threats, as you know, is something that's happening on a daily basis, and I have taken reference to these through the latest World Economic Forum report, just because I wanted to ensure its timeliness. Global Ideas is all about innovative concepts and solutions. Global thought leadership is where we look at the practice of influencing and advancing discussions on global issues. And finally, very importantly, industry academia collaboration is the partnership that we're looking at. How are we bridging the gap between the theoretical knowledge and the practical application? So very quickly, I've looked at convenience sampling because, being based out of the UAE, I wanted to ensure I get the best of the 6 continents that we are, very, very easily connected with from here. We've looked at the diversity of, around 500 respondents, out of which 300 gave us their responses over 3 months. What are the main objectives? I will come to it in detail, but first of all, the pivotal global competencies contributing to the global mindsets or global leadership competencies. We're looking at the examining the nexus between them. We're looking at the intermediary role of the industry and academia partnerships. We're looking at the influence on global leaderships and the interplay between competencies and challenges and the demographic influence. I've spoken about the geographical scope of 6 inhabited continents. We have taken representations from corporate and academia as well. I'm moving forward to the population. So once again, we looked at people with at least 15 years of professional experience who had advanced degrees, who had global exposure of at least visiting 3 countries in the past 5 years, and who are currently in leadership roles. So that was the key criteria. With regards to the review of literature, I remember Dr. Shakti talking about it's very important to guide, to have us talk about what is the criteria for inclusion and exclusion in some of the previous pre-colloquiums. And I felt that was so relevant. So my inclusion here is I have looked at studies from 29 to 2024 and looking at the latest research. I kept English as the basis of the study and the relevance to look at cultural intelligence, adaptability in terms of some of the competencies, peer-reviewed journals with high credibility, specifically in these areas. I've looked at higher geographical outreach. We looked at methodology from the empirical statistics to different evidences, comprehensive reviews. The review of literature was done with at least 200 peer review articles from top publications. We looked at also different textbooks from the academic circle. We looked at online articles and also newspaper cuttings and clippings with regards to latest information on this. So overall, putting everything together, a comprehensive review of at least 300 different sources we looked at. I have ensured to demarcate and also look at the statistical tools used for different areas of influence and highlight the gaps that have been identified. So I think some of the key areas that we brought about were about 17 areas, because this was more comprehensive but focused at the same time. So, areas of global leadership in the field of AI was also taken into consideration because I wanted to keep it as lively and timely as possible. Integrating ESG factors, looking at calls cross cultural competencies, digital transformation and technology played another key role, also looking at emerging markets. And we spread it by talking about, the type of publication, the objectives, the review, the statistical tools used, and mainly the gap identified. And this is what we have done with at least 17 different papers. When it came to the research gaps, the best part, what we noted was something that we did not, think about at the start of this research. And that is why I think the vast expanse to different continents made a big difference. So I think in most of the papers, and if you can notice, we're looking at 2024 as well, and bigger sample sizes. And we see that the need for more empirical research on the outcomes, the intersectionality, the geopolitical dynamics, the innovation, the strategies, the resilience factors, cultural transformation, most importantly, the comprehensive measurement metrics. These were all that were needed. And based on the limitations of the research, we looked at research opportunities in these areas, including illustrating, practical examples and case studies. I'm not going to go into the detail here, but I just wanted to give you, an understanding of the depth of the focus in this area, because I really wanted us to deep dive instead of going wide. What is the statement of the problem that we looked at? So, first of all, it's all about our contribution towards the development of a global mindset and thought leadership. So, the global thought leadership and the global mindset are something that interplay with each other. Secondly, the role of the Industria Academy, partnerships, and how do we link these competencies together? The influence, the demographic background, and to ensure that it spans all these continents in time. Coming to the theoretical framework, I think this was a great learning for me because, I could understand and take a deep dive into some of the transformation, the theoretical theories, which I think were very important and relevant to the context of this research. So right from transformational research, where we look at, elaborating frameworks, we look at the Globe study, which talks about organization behavior effectiveness, transformation leadership, emotional intelligence, cross cultural leadership. Ethical leadership also played a role because, to get to the top with integrity, fairness, ethical decision making, like we can see in Elon Musk, where he, one fine day just kind of took a stance to, fire most of his staff there at X. And that is why we talked about practical ethical leadership as well, because that was so relevant. We look at sustainable leadership, and I've looked at different case studies on the UAE leadership as well to see what is the vision 2030, 2050, 2070 that we're looking at. Transformation leadership, emotional and cross-cultural. So coming to the contextual framework, we look at global challenges as one spectrum. The other variable is the industry academia collaboration, global idea is the rest. And then we have global thought leadership, which are interconnected to different leadership traits. So based on this, we looked at research questions and mapped it with the objectives to ensure there was complete alignment right from the start. So for example, some of the questions were like, what key leaders, global ideas and challenges have the potential to sculpt the future landscape? We looked at interrelating, the global mindset, the global thought leaders, and looking at the spectrum of leaders across sectors. We also looked at different competencies to correlate and see what are some of the global challenges that are poised for us to confront. The role of synergy between industry academia interface, the influence, and the demographic variables. And it was based on these questions where we had constant repertoire with. We looked at the objectives, which then were framed based on the questions which talk about how does these contribute to the development of thought leadership? What are the nexus between them? What is the role of the industry academia partnerships? What are some of the global ideas and the demographic backgrounds that we need to understand them? So I think ensuring that we aligned our objective, our questions to the hypothesis, is something that we wanted to ensure that there was consistency and clarity right from the start to the end. So if you can see the order of the questions that were filed to the hypothesis linked to the objective, and I will come to details of the hypothesis here. So the first objective is all about the pivotal global competencies and how do they contribute to the global mindset. For this, we looked at two, which is the null, where there is no significant relationship, and the alternative, where there is, the global competencies are significantly related to the development of the global mindset. The second objective was examining the nexus. And for this, we looked at the null hypothesis of does it not influence or does it significantly influence? The third is determining the intermediary role of the industry academia partnerships in linking global competencies. Once again, the null hypothesis showed that it does not play a significant intermediary role at all. And then we have the alternative hypothesis, which talks about the industry academia partnerships and that they do play an intermediary role between the competencies and the global challenges. The fourth was interesting because it looks at the global ideas on the interplay. And this is important because it is on the context of the present and aligned with all the research studies. Once again, the null hypothesis is it has no significant influence, and the alternative is that it is significantly influencing the relationship of global competencies and challenges. And the fifth, which is the final, was how do we understand the demographic backgrounds? And I felt this was very important to our study, keeping in mind that we had an international audience who were giving insights from the 6 inhabited continents and to share their perceptions on global competencies, because we have a lot of Indian, a lot of our Indian thought leaders are out there leading big companies. And that is why we once again went to the null hypothesis of they do not significantly influence at all, and the alternative on they do significantly influence. So the scope of the study, as I mentioned, is also by the geographical area of the 6 inhabited continents of Asia, Africa, North America, South America, and Europe and Australia, the sample size of 500 thought leaders, out of which we were able to have completed responses of 300 over 3 months. The data collection was both close-ended and open-ended questions, and the data analysis tools were the SPSS, the R language, the PLS SEM, just to understand the vast spectrum across regions. So here is the research methodology using the primary and secondary data and the analysis, which looked at a very conclusive, descriptive, and casual style. Quantitative and qualitative research analysis were taken into consideration from thought leaders. We used primary and secondary data and had online surveys. So the sample design, as I mentioned, was the target group. We also used leading consultancy firms like PwC, KPMG, and McKinsey to give us insights from a global coverage of Asia Pacific, North America, and the extended East and the Middle East region. When it comes to the data collection, we use the Cochrane formula, which looks at approximately 500 participants spanning 3 to 6 months. We had 4 rounds of data collection to ensure clarity. It was in English, and we aim to ensure the integrity and reliability of the study outcomes at all levels. So in terms of the pilot study, we used a preliminary test, we used reliability, we had most of the measures which exceeded 0.70 thresholds, which talks about satisfactory reliability study in the questionnaire and the pilot study. We also looked at examining the correlations between the project management knowledge areas, the outcomes, and the correlation fell between 0.20 to 0.70 range, which we thought was considered satisfactory. So the final details are all about the data screening of the demographic. We had layered analysis to ensure it complied with the statistical requirements, correlation analysis to look at interpretation on a 5-point scale, and a comprehensive analysis as well. So this is some of the outcomes where we look at the base model, where global challenges is the base, and we look at the antecedents of the passion for diversity, the adventure, the self-assurance, the intercultural empathy, the interperson impact, diplomacy, global business savvy, competition and outlook, cognitive complexity, psychology, the scope, and also interconnectedness towards the base model, which then gave us the outcome. The mediator next was the role of the industry academia collaboration, where we worked on the mediator model between global challenges and the global mindset. Third, we looked at the moderator model, which made, linked global ideas and then kept global challenges as the mediator, global challenges, ideas as the moderator, and then linked it to the antecedents to see if there was a correlation. And finally, we looked at the mediator moderator model together, which looked at global challenges on one side. We looked at the industry academia collaborations, global ideas, and most importantly, the link of everything, including the intellectual capital, to ensure that there was an overall progress and correlation. So let's go to the frequencies of gender that we looked at, which shows the distribution of the gender imbalance in the sample. And we saw that there was a higher representation of females compared to males here. The diversity also looked at different areas to ensure that, there were a few respondents who wanted to keep their gender intact by not disclosing, but overall, we had a higher percentage of women leaders who have responded to the sample, which also shows a big trend. The age related, we looked at mainly respondents from 31 to 40 years, looking at a middle age dominance, high in their career and success. When it came to education, we looked at majority at a graduate level, postgraduate and PhD, because we covered academia as well, with a significant proportion of 40.6% of the responses to be relatively educated. The countries traveled, as I mentioned, we looked at 3 to 5 countries traveled in the last 3 to 6 years, 3 years mainly, the minority with extensive travel. We had so many who traveled over 10 countries who were also part of our recording and details. The frequency of the countries where they lived was important to ensure that most of them lived in at least 3 or more countries. And that is where we felt this study had more value because it came from people with higher diverse international exposure. The company stated, we looked at private and public, a majority obviously belonging to the private sector, because I think that is where the need for competency ideas grew with a lot of transparency and governance. The public listed companies were much smaller to 16.4%. Coming to the sectors, very, very important, we looked at banking and insurance, keeping finance as a core spectrum, consultancy as well, diplomacy, manufacturing, pharma, public, IT, telecom. We had representative of like 20.8% of data set from the retail. Policy think tank, we went to the government as well to have a fair representation. The size of the companies was skewed towards smaller companies, less than 500 in categories. There was a decrease. We looked at a lot of small and medium scale enterprises. We did not approach too many large companies. Rather, we approached more when it came to SMEs and middle size, because we thought this would be more useful when it came to sector specific information. Now, when it came to global ideas, I think this is where, we looked at global ideas, and a rating of 4.41 in a standard deviation of 0.574, which talks about consistent ratings. And this goes all the way down to talk about, when we come to the ID10 point, it talks about a mean rating of 4.44 with a high standard deviation of 0.648, which talks about relatively consistent but more varied ratings. Similarly, when it came to the golden psychology caps, which is very important in terms of creating baseline indicators towards global leadership competencies, we had a category of the mean score of 4.443, a standard deviation of 0.56, relatively all the way down to a mean score of 4.319 and a standard deviation of 0.603, which shows a very clearly, a clear moderate level of variability. We also go to the global social capital, which talks about a standard deviation of 0.619 to the moderate variability around the mean. And this varies to the inference, which comes to a mean score of 4.271 with a standard deviation of 0.560, which also talks about moderate variability. Similarly, with the global intellectual capital, once again 4.343, which talks about moderate variability. And this doesn't change to that extent because even when we look at COG 05 in the global intellectual capital, it comes to a standard deviation of almost, similar of 0.545. What stayed apart was the industry academia connection, the interface. And this is where we looked at the capabilities having a score of 4.116 to a standard deviation of 0.604, which talks about and specifies moderate variability around the mean. And while we go lower, it talks about a mean score of 4.20 to 0.525, once again with moderate variability. Global challenges 2 gave us a similar score, but I would now like to come to a summary of, the outcomes. What does that mean to have these high mean scores of 5.2 to 5.4? We are looking at, having the variables of global psychological capital, social capital, intellectual capital, and these are all antecedents to bring about a well integration in positive perceptions in the framework. Also, one thing that we could see with the results in this consolidated slide is the strongest correlations which are tied to psychological, social, and intellectual capabilities. And these high scores in global capabilities only show greater perceived competence and readiness to tackle global challenges, which show the interconnected of dimensions. With this descriptive
Sameera,
analysis,
sorry
yeah,
to interrupt. We have to now little fast enough. So descriptive
sure,
you have explained. Now I appreciate if you go to the major models and then your findings. Yeah.
perfect,
This
yeah,
PPT I have already shared with the experts. So don't worry. They have gone through with
wonderful,
all these things. Yeah.
sure.
So
So thank you. So I will move on from the matrix to the reliability and the validity. We also use the Funnel-Lacker, discriminative validity. We have used different approaches and assessments. So the hypothesis testing approach of bivariate t-test, ANOVA, chi-square, and PLS. The R-square results, which show it's a good fit and aligned with the model. The regression analysis also shows us a minor effect and a strong effect when it comes to the dependent variables that we have used on competencies. The F square was also used to measure the different areas. And finally, the variance inflation factor showed, a big correlation between the different areas. The bootstrapping results were used as well, which show analysis and description. So this is where we talk about what is significant and insignificant in the analysis and the outcomes, where we look at, the relation of the bootstrapping. Let's now go to the results and the assessment. So the hypothesis which showed, that there was an insignificant or significant relationship, and the results now show that there's a significant relationship between global thought leadership, industry academia collaborations, and global challenges. with the p-value, which is statistically significant in this relationship. The moderator effect here also showed that, there is a statistically significant relationship. The moderator effect is 2.5 times the standard deviation from the mean. The specific indirect effect, which was so important with the relationship between all the three variables, shows a hypothesis, and it also shows a significant relationship in both areas. The total effect, which talks about no direct effect on the global challenges, and the significant effect, here clearly shows that it is statistically significant. The statistic of 11.094 implies the total effect in the standard deviation of the mean. So here are the techniques that we use: convenience sampling. We also use the Cochrane formula to ensure that the probability of non-selection and selections were represented. The key insights were, we looked at the age composition, the validity of the study with the age of the respondents, the degrees of what they were studying, the international experience. Some also spoke about living in certain countries, which highlighted their experience. We looked at private countries. Sectoral and company size representation. We looked at different samples from manufacturing, and a majority of these companies came back with positive influences. The key construct here talks about the mean score, which talks about high resilience and optimism, high knowledge, strong networks, high competence, and most importantly, growth potential. So the correlation shows a strong positive correlation between the global ideas and the psychological capital levels. We also look at the global social capital, which suggests, strong capabilities, the intellectual capital, once again, linking it to the social capital, the correlations, the academia interface, and finally, a high statistical significance when it comes to the challenges. So in conclusion, this will help in fostering positivity for employee satisfaction. It will help equip leaders with international challenges, continuous learning, build connections, and most importantly, establish integrity. I would like to sum up with some of the key areas which talk about, first of all, a global mindset through interactive training programs, cultural awareness, global perspectives. We look at emotional intelligence, which looks at developing empathy, most importantly, continuous learning in accessing global seminars, conferences, and going for these workshops, building networks, strategic thinking, and promoting leadership. So I've just also added some of the contributions in the field of study, latest information here with key insights, and how we can have more novel insights to promote this literature. The implications, as you all know, is policy development, advocacy, training and development. We can also use this in industry. We can use this by industry professionals in leadership cultivation long term. We look at thought leaders when it comes to society for growth and excellence, policymakers as well, knowledge development when it comes to driving and sharing this knowledge between cultures, innovation, IPR filings, and most importantly, new venture development and taking this research forward to new heights. I have also summed it up with few references here. And thank you so much for your time and patience in giving me a listening here. Thank you.
Okay. So finally, you finished in 45 minutes. So I'm happy
Thank
we
you.
adhere to the time. So now I request Dr. Shakti to give the suggestions, ma'am, if there is something which we have, if we have missed or something we can add at this level, how we can enhance the work, or if there is any major correction is required. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, good afternoon. And I'm very thankful for Shubha Chandra ma'am that she's always invited me previously also and today also on the platform. I'll try to give some of my suggestions before I embark on that 14 suggestions which I have listed. I would first of all thank Miss Sameera for giving a very detailed explanation of the research which you have done till now. And I'm glad that you presented it very well. That was nice
Thank you, ma'am.
presentation.
Thank you.
So, however, I have few observations and suggestions. If you can take it up in good spirit and if you can implement it, it will be a more robust study.
Yeah.
So, because we all are in the learning path, either it is you or me, I am also learning, you are also learning. We need to support each other with whatever you know, and so that a good work comes out of it. That is the only intention. So, first of all, I was thinking that you have collected data as you have listed down from some of the leading consultancy firms. If I'm right, like PwC, KPMG, you have listed McKinsey, right? So, do
Yes.
we have documents from those organizations wherein on the stamp paper it is written that they have given you some data from their policy bound process? So, do we have some documents which we can also show in case if somebody wants to see out of the work which you have done? Because as you have listed some big names in the consultancy firms, so do we have those documents, authentic data collection documents by any chance?
Yes, Dr. Shakti. So we have collected the reports that they have generated with permission for use in my research. I had reached out to these companies personally because we deal with them as well, and they were glad to support me in the study.
Okay, so you have collected data from which organizations? Can you name some?
Yeah, it is Deloitte,
Mhm.
PricewaterhouseCoopers,
Yes.
and McKinsey.
So all these three documents we have if somebody
Yes,
wants to see the authenticity of data collected. So
yes,
that is my first point. If you have, it is good. If you don't have, just talk to them so that they generate for you because nowadays these things are in question. If you go for A category journals, all the editors are saying the data collected documents needs to be
yes.
presented if at all any questions comes up from anybody who is reading the paper.
Perfect.
Then, other than this, I would like to know what was your data collection year in which you have done the data collected period. You have mentioned 3 months somewhere, but what was that year
Mhm.
when you collected it?
So it was last year. Um, yeah, it was last year for at least spanning 5 months when we collected the
Okay.
data.
Okay.
We added some people of this year as well. So whenever we have, celebrities or thought leaders coming to Dubai, for example, we had Robin Sharma who had come here for an event. When we meet them, we also interview them to just ensure that we have some of the latest people who have given us insights. Recently, we
Okay.
had Lee Howell from the World Bank, so we have included his information as well.
Okay. So as far as I have seen your slides, it was somewhere mentioned 3 months, which was a little vague. Please mention properly from which year to which year or from which month to which month you have
Okay,
collected data. That becomes important for any observer who is on the platform to understand when was data collected. Then
sure.
coming to factor analysis, which is very important these days. When I talk about factor analysis, the variables which you have taken under study, were they analyzed during pilot study also? Which were the items dropped after that? I would like to know. If there are scales used for the variables which you have understudied, I would like to see if you have presented and if I have missed by any chance to observe that the scales used for your items or variables, if you have in some slides and if we can see it again, I would like to see that.
Sure, I can just
Yes. And then if
read
you can
it.
explain me while doing the pilot study, so pre and post, I want to know. Before pilot study, what did you take? After the analysis of pilot study, which items were dropped? How did the pilot study help you in framing a robust questionnaire post analysis? If you can explain me a little bit on this, it would be good to understand your thesis better.
Sure. So I'm just going to share the slide. One moment. Yeah. So, ma'am, can you see the slide? Is it visible?
Yes, yes, it
Okay.
is ROL slide, inclusion, exclusion before me.
Yeah. So one is this area of the inclusion and exclusion criteria was also done after the first pilot to ensure, because earlier I had included research papers even prior to 2019. But when I came to know that, there were competencies that were changed, we moved it to 2019 onwards to ensure that it had the right representation. So that's one area. Secondly, when it came to the peer reviewed journals, once again we looked at opinion pieces. We left out opinion pieces because we wanted to have higher credibility articles which were published in noted research papers. That was another area. The third area was, initially we had in our first pilot, we looked at a single country without, regional applicability. And this is what had happened during my doctoral committee meeting, where, Dr. Sheelan had actually pointed out and said, rather than sticking to a single country, move it to a global perspective because that will give you a, full-fledged, report. So we moved questions from the first pilot to a broader range of questions to include a global study. So that was a geographical focus that we looked at. I want to move forward to another slide.
Wait, Miss Sameera, I feel that you have not understood my question. This is not about literature review pre and post. This is
Yeah.
about the variables under study. That means if you have taken thought leadership, that becomes your variable. If you go to the model, the moderator, mediator, moderator, which you have
Yes.
shown, you would have taken some questions on those variables, if I'm correct, for
Yeah.
pilot study. After you do the pilot study, as far as I understand research, we put it in a software like SPSS in my times. Now there are more softwares, and we calculate the alpha value, Cronbach alpha. When we calculate that, if the Cronbach alpha is around zero point 0.9, it is a good hold that item to be retained. If it is lesser, then we don't retain it and we find out the reasons. Maybe the respondents have not understood the question the way we want it. So we say validity and reliability. The question should be understood in the same way as the researcher is putting. In those things, the alpha value comes less after coding and the analysis. Those items are dropped, and only few questions which are directly asking or intending to ask what it should ask is taken forward. Something like that every researcher does for pilot study. So I was trying to understand in that perspective and not from the LR perspective.
I got you. We did a reliability test of the questionnaire, and luckily, because I'm working in the field of global leadership competencies, it was more aligned to the questions that we asked. So not much of a change of the leadership competencies were carried out.
So that becomes my
Yeah.
suggestion. Please note it down. You have to see that what items were dropped. We cannot completely say that none of the items were dropped or we don't know what were dropped. You have to build a possible and plausible response to this type of question because it becomes a very valid question. If you have done pilot study pre and post, everybody would want to know. So please note it down. Please work on that. Maybe you
Sure.
can talk to your guide and frame the answer for that. Then at a place you have written sample unit is equal to 300 thought leaders across 6 continents. Okay, at one of the place in one of the slides. I was thinking that how did you describe these thoughtful leaders? There is something known as operational definitions, right? Which
Yeah.
says that maybe thoughtful leadership would have been defined in multiple ways in literature, but for my study, from the entire so many definitions, I have defined thoughtful leaders in these ways. Now, what are those ways that I want to understand? Because I feel the operational definitions of the constructs are lacking. You have given the definition which is present in literature. But then again, that's a researcher job, because maybe the normal meaning of thoughtful leader for me is somebody who can manage the change. For somebody else, thoughtful leader, somebody who can manage the crisis. And all has been
Okay.
defined like this in literature. For somebody else, it can be managing or making people jump back after an epidemic like COVID has hit. That is also a thoughtful leader. If he can make the follower jump back to normal state after the epidemic has hit, he is a thoughtful leader for somebody in literature.
True.
Now, giving those definitions, what Miss Sameera has taken to define thoughtful leader, that becomes the operational definition. So for every variables you have taken, you have to write the operational definition of thoughtful leader for my study was this. So that is how I define operationally my variables. So
Yeah.
in that way, where you have written all this, you have written that individual recognizing for innovative ideas, expertise, influence, right? Who drive
Yes, ma'am.
change and provide guidance. Now, you would have built some questions on that. When you have
Yes.
done pilot study, are there any item, like for instance, out of these expertise was dropped or influence was dropped, that you need to frame?
I got
Something
it.
should be taken forward, something should be dropped, then only feels like somebody has done the research,
I
right?
got you. Okay.
So that you please see. Then somewhere you have mentioned straightforward probability sampling. Is it different from probability sampling? What is the straightforward probability sampling, if I can know?
It
Somewhere you
means the
have
same
mentioned.
thing. It was just that our focus was on the probability sampling.
No, so see, there is a rule of research. There is a language of research which we cannot change. Now, the moment you say straightforward probability sampling, looks like maybe there is some word which I'm unaware, either this or
Okay.
there is, or there is somewhere you are not understanding the rule of the language. The rule of the language is probability sampling is non-probability sampling, random sampling. We cannot use any word like this straightforward probability sampling. Looks like some new thing has been invented. Either I don't know, so you have to confirm, or if there is no word and you have used in a general term, we cannot use.
I
So
got
just
you.
check on those things. Yes, you can maybe change or edit. Okay. Then somewhere you have written layered analysis. So as far as I know, there is something known as cluster analysis. Is it different? You are telling layered analysis, and I know cluster analysis. Is it different? Then how? If it is same, then why are we using layered analysis? Can I know more about this?
Layered analysis. So I think when we look at layered analysis, we are looking at separating them into distinct manageable layers. And this I believe
So
is
yeah, I
or
understood.
basically
So for that,
levels.
please check.
Yeah.
Please check. There is something known as cluster analysis, quota sampling. How
Okay.
much we are differing from cluster, quota, and strata
Okay.
analysis, and we are targeting to layered analysis. How what is the hairline difference? Please be very sure,
Sure.
because the way you are telling that different stratas were built, then it should be strata sampling. But then layered
Mm,
analysis, just make it sure that what you are telling, you know the
sure.
difference between strata and layered. Otherwise, please use the term which is meant. Or maybe if I do not know, please, you can also throw light on that. Layered analysis, the way you are telling looks like it is
Yeah.
strata,
So
cluster, or
yeah.
just
So
check, please
ma'am,
check.
yeah,
Hmm.
sure. From what I had understood, there are two levels. One is, the strategic operation and the tactical. And that is why, this was the term that I understood was used. But I will once again, refresh, check, and revert on this. Sure.
Okay. So the next thing which comes up is moderator effect. You have spoken about moderator effect, right? Of global ideas, I think, on the relationship of A and B. Now, if I will ask you to a layman who doesn't know, and he's sitting in the audience, and he wants to know that what is this moderator effect of ideas and global ideas and on the relationship of A and B she's talking. How will you explain that? Understand that I don't know what is moderator analysis.
So the way I have understood, although I'm non-statistical, what I understood was the relationship between two variables changes depending on the level of the third variable, ma'am. And that is why it is known as the moderator. So for example, I mean, just to understand, they look at the independent variable, the dependent variable, and the moderator variable. So it could the effect could be either enhancing, it could be buffering, or it could be reversing. And that is why the term has been used, because then it would show
Yes,
the
yes, you are
dependence.
on the right track. But then in your case, what is the thing that you have to tell me? Like, tell me that global ideas have increased the relationship in this manner, that you have to explain.
Perfect. Okay.
So can you do that? Can you tell me that either it has increased and
Yeah.
increased in what terms? A and
Yeah,
B,
yeah.
please define.
Sure. So I can just go to that slide. One second. Yeah. So for example, let's look at this, which I've put a consolidated slide here just to. Yeah. So for example, in this slide, it talks about, the different variables that we have. And for example, the high mean scores talk about the positive perceptions. The second aspect is, looking at these different variables, and it talks about how they are tied to the psychological, social, and intellectual capabilities. So that is another, correlation. And finally, we bring all of them together, which talks about how these perceived competencies can look at global challenges, which are all interconnected together.
See, you should tell with lot of clarity, maybe you can work on this, that how the influence of global ideas have increased the relationship between A and B or decreased, that you should know. And you have to tell in a way where a layman can understand what you are intending to tell out of your thesis. That is my suggestion. Maybe you can work more on this. Then, other than this, also, whenever we are showing moderator effects, there are some
Okay.
graphs for moderator effect, which were particularly missing. And
Okay.
without that, we cannot show to the audience the moderator effect. There are some graphs. Please check the very famous graphs. Whenever you're showing moderator effect, those graphs should come. 1, 2, 3. So
Okay.
that was
Okay.
missing. Yes, not this. This is a figure. I'm talking about graph. You have to tell A and B and the moderator effect. The slope has to be shown. Please
Okay.
check
Okay. I got it.
in good theses, wherever moderator effect has been shown, you will understand, you will see those graphs. You have to draw those graphs. Then at one place I've seen your PPT, you have written convenience sampling. Other place you have written purposive sampling. Both I've seen. Now this is a dichotomy and an irony, and which is not expected of a professional presentations like this, because it is a very evident flaw. We cannot
Okay.
use both sampling at different slides. Just see that it should be homogeneous. Whatever you are telling should be homogeneous. It should correlate, it should be cohesive, and the flow should completely match from top to end. Just check
Sure.
there is a flaw like this. Then, if I talk about the scales used for your construct, did you show me the which year scale was used for which variable? Like you have a variable like this, global mindset. So can I see for what scale which you used for global mindset?
So we are talking about these, the research methodology.
No, no, no. Again, you have framed the questionnaire, correct? If I'm
Yes.
correct.
Yeah.
Now, those questions you have taken from where? We cannot sit and prepare questions in vacuum according to the law of the research. We
Correct. Yeah.
usually take it from some standard questionnaire. So if you have, I can see there are a lot of main 4 variables are there. At least I was expecting 4 scales to be shown with proper year, with proper author name, from where you have taken the standard questions and then tried to extract the alpha values. Without that, It is very, very incomplete. Just check. Somebody wants to know from which basis you have framed the questionnaire. That is
Okay.
missing, completely missing. Please check and include. That is my
Sure.
suggestion.
Sure.
Then as far as LR is used, how many literature review you have done in total, roughly? I mean the question paper, the research paper, the journal, the books, the websites. Roughly how many were there?
I think around 300 when it came to,
See,
a
300
book.
is a big number. It is very good. I appreciate that you have done it, but 100, 150 I have seen. So just see that it should have a healthy mix of previous studies also and like recent studies also. It should not
Sure.
be skewed towards any end. Should be a healthy
Okay.
mix, right? And you have done the inclusion and exclusion criteria. It would last time also I suggested it would be good if you can make a flow chart in one slide. 300 paper taken, then 30 were removed because they were of other language. Then the number comes to this. Then 20 were removed because the variables under study was not completely aligned with my study. Something like that, a flow chart should come. It gives a lot of clarity to the audience. So
Sure.
please see that. So in that way, I think I've given you 14 suggestions. I would again
Yes.
narrate it. If you have not written, please write it down somewhere so that it makes a little bit a better contribution to your study. Documents of data collection should be there from
Sure.
the companies listed. Then the data collection year to be mentioned, which was completely lacking. Factor analysis to be definitely shown for the items you have taken. If you are saying that thoughtful leaders or any other variables, operational definitions to be mentioned, then what? Please check on the word straightforward probability sampling.
Sure.
Then this layered analysis, how is it different than cluster, strata, quota? Please check. Be very, very sure what you're telling. Graphs for the moderator effect is missing. One place you have written convenient sampling, other purposive sampling. Please make it homogeneous.
Sure.
You make sure you know which items were dropped after the pilot study. So pre and post pilot study to be known to the scholar, definitely. Definitely you have to show the scales used for the constructs and how much is the scale reliable. So reliability analysis, validity analysis to be mentioned. And if please do not take scales of 1980s, because then and there the question will come that why the recent scales were not taken because they were more relevant to the current situation. So
Sure.
please make sure of 1980s were taken. So make sure that you prepare an answer or take some recent scales. And for the moderator effect, you should know how do you explain it to a layman. What is the moderator effect? What is the mediator effect? And LR has to have a healthy mix along with a flow chart of inclusion and exclusion criteria. So with that, I think my 14 suggestions are done from my side. Otherwise, it was a good presentation. I think if you include these, it becomes cherry on the cake, better, more better than the previous.
Thank you, ma'am, for all your guidance. I will do that. And I really appreciate the feedback. You've gone out of your way. It's been a very, very insightful guidance that you've given me. And I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. Thank you, Shakti ma'am. So I have also written all the points. So data collection, authenticity, I will again cross-check with her because a lot of email communication has also been done with authorities. So that itself is one evidence. And pilot study has been done actually, and there are lots of items were added, and then again 2 times we have gone with that. So she has not presented that. Second DC onwards we were working on this. So I have been with her as an internal DC member also. Data collection time, yes, Sameera, you have to mention. You don't need to say 3 months. You can say 8 or 9 months you have taken. Nothing wrong
Okay.
in that to mention that. That's what
Oh,
ma'am said. Operational definition, you have to be very careful. And ma'am has given a very wonderful observation. Be specific with one term throughout your work. Like you have mentioned nicely the purposive sampling. That was enough. Purposely you have taken the people. So don't change it. Okay, so
mm,
everything is there. The only thing is you have not put it in a correct way so that you can do it. Not an issue. Yes, moderator effect graphs are not there, which we can include now. Nothing wrong in that.
sure.
We can include now. So we have the data, we have the analysis, we have to just run one function and we can get the graphs. So don't worry about it. Then Likkert's the scales. So you have gone through with lots of theories and papers. So you have the established questionnaire. The only thing is you were not able to mention to the ma'am. So it is there. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
She has gone through and she is having that. And yes, you can present when you are doing for your final thesis. When you're writing, you can mention pre pilot study, what was the construct, and after pilot study, what you have finalized. So 2 times we have done that. Correct. We have collected the
Yes.
data, then again we have worked on that.
Yes.
So lots of work has been done, but it has to be come out also.
Okay.
Okay, so these are the points. Dr. Shakti, I really appreciate too much of time you must have taken
Yeah.
for this, and you have gone
Yes.
through
Yeah.
in detail
That's
and
my
mentioning
duty.
all this point. It's really thankful. Dr. Sheelan, am I audible, ma'am? I think Sheelan ma'am has messaged me. Some issue was there. Oh, good. Ma'am is here. So, ma'am, now it's to you. Please give your
Yes,
suggestions and questions.
yes. So thank you so much for inviting me for this pre-colloquium. It was really a wonderful presentation, Sameera. I mean, as
Thank you,
always,
ma'am.
like a leader, and you have brought in a lot of characteristics of the global leaders. That's really, I really appreciate that. And Dr. Shakti, ma'am, you've really given Shakti to the presentation now. So what I had listed on few of them, you have already spoken about. So as such, now on the thesis part, on the presentation part, I don't have much. But then one thing which I feel, beyond statistics, you have chosen a topic, right? You have defined certain objectives into it. Then you have used various methods, statistical methods to prove the point. So can we look at linking all this in a very sensible manner, right? So you had identified a problem. What are the solutions and how people like us, or the entire society can use it now?
Mm.
So if we can do that matching, so you have done it fairly well till I think your variables. But when we came to the findings, I think a little bit of elaboration on each one of it would be really great. So what I mean to say, so if I want to become a global leader, for example,
Yeah.
right, and I look at all the variables that you have chosen, now, what kind of combinations should I look at, right? Whether everything is required in me in equal percentages, or should something be little more and the other thing be little less? So maybe if we can, if possible, we can come out with that kind of framework. I see the framework will be complete. So I
Thank you
think
so
that is
much. I'll
that
do
is
that.
one
Yeah.
that is one suggestion from my side. So because end of the day we have to put it in a very simple manner in front of the audience, right? So a few of us are there as a statisticians experts, but not everybody else whosoever will be attending it. For them it is like, when you have done a research, what purpose does it serve?
Mm.
So we would look at that. Now so that brings me to the question, right, that what are those practical implications of your research, findings for education institutions, for corporate training programs, for policymakers, right, who are aiming to develop those global leaders. So one is me as an individual, which I asked. The other is at organization level, what effort organization should put in to develop the global leaders.
Sure. So I think that is a very interesting question because the outcome of this research is the practical implementation. So for the educational institutions, I think the importance of integrating global leadership development into the curricula, emphasizing on experiential learning, fostering, cross-cultural competencies is what I would suggest as, an implementation for the academia. For the corporates, I think corporate training programs from leadership development initiatives, diverse learning methodologies is something we can look at. For policymakers, I think they can utilize the research insights into, the design of the national and international relationships frameworks so that they address these critical competencies of what is needed. And finally, for research, I think it's all about providing actionable recommendations to foster a new generation into thought leaders who can navigate the complexities that we currently have in our times.
Right, Sameera. That's a fantastic answer in view. So, what we can little further get into it. So there will be, so what needs to be done, you have defined. Now,
Sure.
how this can be further, broken into those nitty-gritties. So, for example, you have picked up one characteristics of a global leader, right? Now, to develop that, what are those things which needs to be done? So if your
Sure.
research, you have done that kind of research, if it allows and you can include it in your framework, that would be really a great addition. I look forward to, look forward to see that framework from you.
Sure. I
So
will
thank you so
incorporate that.
much. So my heartfelt thanks to Dr. Shubha and the entire team, Dr. Nivya. I have been part of this since beginning and have seen the way Sameera has grown as a research scholar in this entire journey. I see a very big change and very great additions in this presentation. So kudos to you, Sameera, for that and your research guide as well. Because
Thank you, ma'am.
I'm sure all of you will agree that a lot goes into when we finally come to this stage of the thesis, right? So this, the research work also develops us as a individual, as a strong character,
True.
and then in future you'll be able to guide a lot of people too. And so you should look at, at this research in a manner that will you be able to implement this at your workplace?
Sure. Sure.
And can you give consultancy via this research to many other organizations to develop the global leaders? So that's a
Amazing.
kind of outcome we should look at. So kudos to the entire team of Garden City University, and thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr.
Uh,
Sheila.
Dr. Anita, do you have any questions?
Yeah, ma'am. I think 95 percentage of the question asked by Lakshmi ma'am and insights was given by you and Sheelan ma'am. But I have only one question as an individual. So so ma'am's conclusion, it was given that as a global leader, the emotion is most important and involved. Is that so, ma'am? I just need to know about whether the emotion is that most important as a global leader. Just I need to know as a person as well as from this point of view.
So thank you, Dr. Anita, for bringing
Yeah,
this
ma'am.
up. Initially, I thought it was one of the most important areas as well. But
Yeah.
to be honest with you, this research showed that it is as equivalent to everyone else who has other competencies, like,
Okay.
understanding, for example, understanding technology
Huh.
has an equal correlation to someone with having emotions, surprisingly. So,
Okay.
although we talk about having interpersonal skills, great communication, the research showed that none of it really matters because all of them are well balanced. And you need to have a balance of all of them together, starting with the changing mindset.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was a wonderful presentation.
Thank you, Dr.
Okay.
Anita. Thank
Dr.
you.
Nivya?
Good evening, everyone. Good evening,
Good
Good
Sheelan
evening,
ma'am.
evening,
ma'am.
Dr. Livia.
Ma'am was my
Good
previous
evening, Divya.
institution's HOD, head of the department. I was reporting to Sheelan ma'am for about 8 years. Okay. With all due respect, I'll come to it is to Dr. Shubha ma'am. I have some certain questions. It is, Sameera madam, it is, you can go to the first slide itself. It is where you are, the starting, the first slide itself, please.
Sure.
Yeah.
Is this
So
what you're looking at?
yeah. So here itself, I'll start it as Garden City's logo has been changed. This is our, it's not university's logo. Okay. Can
Okay.
you go to the next slide? Yeah. Yeah. So here it is shaping future thought leaders for global leadership competencies. When it comes to the research, the title of the thesis having an equal importance. So this is actually a concept where you have told sit with your, it is Shubha madam, and identify the correct title it is to be given. Usually the research title, it is to be given with the, when somebody is hearing there itself, it is to be understand what is actually it is, independent and dependent variable, or it is quite, this title has to be reframed. That this is actually it is, where we are not having it is giving the idea that this as the title for the research. Okay.
Sure. Sure.
So, and that you can sit with, madam will help you out. Okay. Uh, Quite a lot of things which, I could able to find it out. Lot of things it is Dr. Shakti has given, but there are a couple of points. It is what Madam told. I'm just mentioning the a vague idea was only there for the operational ideas of the global leader. The leadership competencies, and how what all it is the factors have been taken. So see, you maybe it is if you look into that one from your own perspective, which I am taking it, you have taken it as somewhere around 300 journals. So in this 300 journals, it's been, you have taken. I saw one slide where each and every point in the operational definition, which you were talking about it, but these are the things somewhere it is, really it is the, the wake. There is a hole which I am, it is feeling it. Okay. That's again, it is, you can rework on it. See, I am not telling it's completely wrong, but there is an improvement is required all these places.
Sure.
Okay, because
Sure.
that's what I feel it. Can you just go to the? There is a slide which was talking about it. Sameera, madam, it is I myself taught you people. It is in the research methodology some
Mhm.
years before. There is nothing called it as a freight forwarding, because Madam has clearly mentioned the language of the research should be very clear. Okay, the
Okay.
words what we use is because we cannot use typical words which we are usually when we talk it as orally we can use many words, but when we talk in the in the research presentations, we should be very clear. When it comes to the qualitative and quantitative, you have used all the moderating, mediating things. It's I'll tell you the analysis part you have done, but the way you presented the content was this. These are the not the words to be used, because each
Okay.
and every place it's a statistics are supposed to be used. For example, one of your slides, when I was listening, mentioned it's a convenient sampling. After some time, it is a sampling name has changed. Okay. So that is not at all acceptable. And another thing is sampling formula, where, which kind of sampling and how did you reach? See, you have given it as for 500, then it came to the 300. Okay, how did you reach this one? What made you to get into that one? And you mentioned it somewhere it is a missing data. So the you have got it the respondents. So minimum, let me tell you, it is, even if it is you are using the creditized table, it's the minimum it is we have to get it somewhere around the 376, where we are having it is a 300. So telling there are statistical part which you can really forward, especially the sampling part.
Okay.
Okay. So the
Got it.
sampling part, it is actually, it is, things are there. See, you can actually, it is the analysis part, the content part, the numbers, everything may be right. But, the sampling, in the research methodology, the sampling part has to be, it's not clear, Sameera madam. So that you, again, it is work with, Shubha ma'am. Ma'am can help it out. It's a matter of presentation as well, because we will not take it that presentations like this. Okay, so that presentation you can actually work it on that one. And correlation values, couple of places which I could able to see, this correlation value is 4 point something and 3 point something. correlation values always lies between, -1 to +1. Any value you take it, this will goes only, it is between the -1 to +1. This is mathematics. Okay. So,
Okay.
you maybe it is taken, it is, I know that one, you may not have that much knowledge, it is in their statistics part. I accept it. It is completely. But when we were presenting this one, it's been very clearly look into that one. It's a correlation part, correlation analysis of fact. And another thing it is, the which Shakti madam also told from my side also, I am telling a factor analysis, that layered analysis words and all, it is not there because there are a couple of, things which can be done. That is not, maybe you have done the word, but I don't know, it is where you got into lag. It is, this layered analysis. These are the words are not there at all. Okay. So, we cannot use it that way. And the major concern which I am having, it is what madam told, but from my side also, I am telling you, it is Sameera madam, because the questionnaire, how many items were had, it's how many items you had, that numbers are, it's very important, pre and post, and how much it is, how many you did it, and how many items you have taken back, and how many it is you are. See, if you are taking completely 50 out of 50 items were there, that 50 items from which been taken, because that is what we call it as, it's an adoption, and it is, your topic is something very recent topic. So, when I did my research, it is out of 47. After it is a post, it was become the 43. We are supposed to give the reason why 4 have been, it is excluded, and all 40 from which, in the annexure, we are has been taken, and from there, this has been taken your research. Okay, that comes as the questionnaire construction. Questionnaire construction is completely, it is needs to be revamped. Okay, and these, this each thing, that's what it is. The language of research and this correlation part and this questionnaire construction, and now I'll come to the what Sheelan ma'am told, because in your research, it is at the last presentation. This research, whomever does the research, at the first question, it is in the research panel, will ask, because after doing the research, yes, of course, you got the PhD degree, but what public got it? Okay, it can be it is a companies, it can be it is a individual, because you have the different kind of thought leaders. So the significance of the research, madam told very clearly, it is companies. She has explained well, it is companies what is getting, people what are getting, and it is I am using it. It is a significance of research which you are supposed to write in the your discussion chapter, that is a chapter 5. Okay. So this is completely missing in your presentation. Okay. See, after all, we all know it is who is Sameera. Okay. But, any other person outside, they may not be knowing it is what this research, what is the use, where it is, all that significance is coming. And sit with madam for one more slide. That is, I noticed scope of the research, because I, quite, having not good idea about that scope of research slide, which also you can actually work out. Thank you, Shubha ma'am. It is, thank you, Sameera. It is to, it is listening all these things. So we can actually work out all these things. It is the points. Prem sir, are you there, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Prem sir, Prem sir, is there any questions from your side, sir? Please.
I think everyone has exhausted all the observations and questions. So I have minor ones left with me. So I have noted down few things where ma'am has put like the language which has been used by ma'am while giving statement of problem, which doesn't seem like a statement of problem. It looks like some kind of definition has been given, and it is not presented that what kind of problem is happening in the society or in the organizations, because this kind of study has not happened or because of this research gap. So it's not actually in the form of problems, and I guess it is more than 5 it has been given. So that has to be revisited how to write it properly. Similarly, in objectives also, when you have given side-by-side research questions and objectives, so just see that particular research question is matching with the objective. I mean, the kind of language which has been used in research question 1, similar kind of factors or questions are reflecting in either of the objectives also.
Yeah.
Further, objectives also need to be rewritten. That is not exactly how we write the objective. So some objectives are having some starting with the verb, like we can start with that, but I think 4th or 5th objective is not entirely, it needs to be rephrased, but overall also rephrasing is required in each and every objective, as per my understanding. Then related to layered analysis, my observation is there that if you find one word which is called as casual layered analysis,
Okay.
there you may find some similarity with the work which you have done.
Perfect.
Because there are 4 or 5 criteria on which we can do a casual layered analysis, in which we have something at global scale also. So I don't know how, from where you pick this word. If it is related to that, you need to present the actual word, so that there will not be any ambiguity when somebody reads or listen to it. Then in presentation of hypothesis also, I will suggest that you go with any one form of hypothesis, either null hypothesis or alternate hypothesis. Both need not to be presented or need not to be given in the thesis or synopsis document also. So these are few observations. Other
Even
things
numbering was not there for hypothesis.
Yes.
Numbering was
and-
not there. It
numbering
was
and both
H1
type of
written everywhere.
hypothesis has
So
been
you,
given. Yes,
yes,
right.
that was also
And
not there.
and there is a major concern related to factor analysis, and also please visit that and check onto that. Other things, I think already you have got the points from other resource persons. So this is it from my side.
Thank you,
Okay.
Dr. Prem.
Yes. What Dr. Prem has mentioned, I also wanted to tell regarding the statement of problem you have given with the references. So a statement of problem goes with a paragraph. So that rewriting. So Sameera, your major thing is you have to just go through with your pre-pilot study data and post-pilot study. You have to come out with the dropout and that dropout items and add-on also, because 2 times you have done that. So it's with you. The only thing is you have not presented. Okay.
I got it.
So that has to be presented in your work when you have already, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So when we do the pilot study, just to enhance the scale. So what enhancement you have done, you have to mention it. Okay, so that's what they wanted to tell. And regarding the sample size, yes, we have to tell how we have to reach to that number, because the population here you have to mention, and we will work, we will mention in that correlation value. Actually, I didn't get it where it is written in 4 point and all, because I have just gone through with the correlation matrix. It was in 0.7 and like that only. So I don't know. I need to again go with the slide, or if Dr. Nivia will later on tell me which slide number it was. Okay, I was just quickly going through the PPT. So correlation value, that what ma'am mentioned, I didn't get it. Let me again go through that. And questionnaire construct, again, you have the theories and the papers from where you have got the questions. Okay. And then through factor analysis, you come to know what are you are taking for your exam, taking for your study. So it must be there with you. I will look into that, and that we can do. And yes, that what Dr. Prem has mentioned, casual layered analysis, that part you have to look into, because that I have not seen where you have mentioned this layered one. So that I also need to check. And you, on the first slide, you have used 2 logos. So on top, what is there is correct. So just remove that. And yeah, so you need to now, all the data what you have already, based on the suggestions given, you have to put it in that and again send the PPT.
Sure, I'll do that.
Okay, yeah. So when the document submission will happen, the revised PPT also has to be gone. Before that, I will send it to Dr. Sheelan and Dr. Shakti also for the final approval. Okay,
Sure.
so it's a work which you have to do, and anyways, you will be getting the recording of this meeting, so you can go through again. You take your time, go through that, and work on that. So nothing to worry. You have the data with you. The only thing is, as I told you from last so many years, academic writing, academic presentation, and academic writing. So things are ready with you. The only thing is more precise way, more academic precise way we have to put it. So I think Dr. Shakti just messaged me. She was supposed to go for some another meeting, so she just left and she said all the best. So with the 14 points what ma'am has told, I have also written. So with those correction we can do. Dr. Sheelan, if the implication part which you wanted to say, so we will include that when she's writing. And anyways, we will be again connecting when the synopsis and submission DC meeting will happen, because she has not explained that part in much. Based on the analysis, what implications can be given, that we can definitely include in that, ma'am. And yeah, so if we are including these all
A
suggestions.
moment. I'll
Yes,
take a
ma'am.
moment.
Please,
Hello,
ma'am.
Dr.
Hi.
Shiksha.
Good evening, everyone. So
Good
there's
evening.
enough and
Good evening,
more
ma'am.
grilling that is done to Sameera today. Everyone has, it's almost 2 hours. So I think Sameera, all points noted, I hope.
Yes, ma'am.
You
I
should be
have.
able to incorporate them. And a big thanks to all of you for helping Sameera beef up her quality of her presentation. I'm sure it's going to turn out much better when she incorporates and adds on all these suggestions. So that's why I thought let me just interrupt and speak for a minute before we wind up. Thank you all for your valuable time. All the Dr. Sheelan and Dr. Shakti. I think Dr. Shakti has left, no? So she was busy. Okay, and of course all my internal team. Sameera, please do ensure that you finish everything and we can have a next round of discussions. All the best
Sure.
and thanks to everyone.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you so much. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, ma'am. So I'm concluding this meeting by thanking all the panel members. So it's wonderful to get lots of suggestions. I really wanted Sameera to get maximum critical evaluation of your work at this stage, because here
Yes.
you can do the correction. Moving forward, you will not have a look back option.
Sure.
So now whatever suggestions are given, it will take some time, not an issue. Put it and then move forward. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shubha. Will do.
Thank you, everyone,
Thank
for
you, ma'am.
Thank you,
joining and
everyone,
giving
for
the
your
suggestions.
inputs.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
ma'am.
you. Thank you.